The lights of the studio glimmered under the glare of cameras, but it wasn't the production that held everyone's attention, it was what was about to happen. Emma Watson leaned into the microphone, eyes blazing, voice sharp as a blade. She didn't mince words. She accused J.K. Rowling of cruelty, exclusion, and fostering a culture of harm. Every syllable reverberated through the studio, landing like a shockwave. Social media exploded before her sentence even ended, hashtags trended, clips circulated, and viewers around the world collectively gasped. The room seemed to shrink under the weight of the confrontation, every camera angle accentuating the tension. Across the table, Bill Maher leaned back slightly, calm but electric. His gaze didn't waver. His silence was deliberate, a pause pregnant with promise. The contrast was immediate, Emma's righteous fury versus Maher's composed intensity. The audience could feel it, even through the screen, a storm about to break. No one expected what came next, murmured the commentators. And indeed, no one did. This was not merely a celebrity spat. This was cultural collision at its finest, identity, morality, and free speech intertwining on live television. Emma represented the rising tide of woke orthodoxy, a movement quick to condemn, slow to listen. Bill Maher, seasoned in debate and razor-sharp in logic, was about to challenge that narrative in ways the world wouldn't soon forget. Every second crackled with anticipation, as if the very air had been electrified. But the stakes went far beyond the studio. Every accusation, every rebuttal, would echo into living rooms, social feeds, and dinner tables across the nation. Supporters of Emma watched with hope, believing their moral high ground was unassailable. Followers of Maher held their breath, trusting in reason and audacity. The lines were drawn, the battlefield invisible but clear. And in that silence before the storm, one thought hung in the air: this moment could change the conversation forever. Bill finally spoke, a calm that cut through the noise. His words were deliberate, precise, unhurried. Each sentence landed with the weight of truth, yet he allowed Emma's fury to dictate the rhythm. She jabbed, he parried. She struck with passion, he answered with logic. The dynamic was mesmerizing, a dance of intellect and outrage, a cinematic clash of opposites. Social media reacted instantaneously. Tweets dissected every facial expression. Memes crystallized in minutes. Viewers debated in real time, who held the moral high ground? Who commanded authority? Every second seemed to escalate the confrontation, heightening FOMO. Millions couldn't look away. What happens next changes everything, one viral post warned. And indeed, the world collectively leaned in, captivated, knowing that a defining moment in public discourse was unfolding. Emma's voice rose to a crescendo, her indignation now bordering on desperation. She punctuated every claim with moral certainty, the kind that comes from untested conviction. Bill Maher, meanwhile, remained steady, an anchor amid the rising tide of outrage. The contrast was stark, chaos versus calm, emotion versus reason. The audience felt it deep in their gut, the tension, the stakes, the sense that history was watching. And then, as if sensing the perfect moment, Bill Maher leaned forward slightly, his calm demeanor radiating confidence. He didn't interrupt, didn't shout. He simply let his presence, his logic, and his authority speak. The studio held its breath. Social media paused in collective anticipation. The world knew something was coming, something no one could have predicted, a turning point that would shatter assumptions and shift the narrative entirely. In that charged silence, the scene froze for a heartbeat, a cinematic pause where every eye, every mind, every heart waited for the storm to break. And as the first words of Maher's response fell into place, the room, and the world, was left suspended in a moment that promised revelation, confrontation, and undeniable drama. This was not just a debate. This was history being written in real time. Emma Watson sat poised, the picture of grace and intellect. Her public persona was impeccable, eloquent speeches, advocacy for women's rights, and a reputation for principled activism. But beneath the carefully curated image lay contradictions the world rarely saw. Her rise to moral prominence carried a subtle arrogance, an assumption that virtue alone equated to understanding. In previous interviews, she had spoken with certainty on issues she had never personally endured, her words polished but occasionally hollow. Critics whispered that her brand of wokeness often blurred the line between genuine empathy and performative virtue signaling. And tonight, on live television, that tension would be exposed for all to see. Emma's attacks on J.K. Rowling were meant to land as righteous critique, yet the cracks in her armor were visible to those paying close attention. Her logic sometimes faltered under scrutiny, passion, while persuasive, occasionally substituted for evidence. Maher's calm, calculated presence highlighted these vulnerabilities, and the audience sensed it instinctively. Every sharp intonation of Emma's voice, every flicker of self-righteous certainty, added to the suspense. She was articulate, fearless, and relentless, but untested in the arena of live, unflinching confrontation against a seasoned debater. The stage was set for a collision of image versus experience, ideology versus practical reasoning. Across the table, Bill Maher exuded a vastly different energy. Decades of public discourse had honed his ability to cut through pretense and confront arguments without malice. Maher's authority came not from celebrity but from mastery of debate, insight into cultural currents, and an unwavering commitment to articulate truth. His life experience, navigating the most polarized media landscapes, had trained him to remain composed when others faltered. Where Emma's rhetoric sparked emotion, Maher's reasoning built gravity, each word deliberate, each pause strategic. Maher's calm authority contrasted sharply with the fervor of the moment. He did not need to raise his voice to command attention, the weight of his intellect carried the room. His presence alone imposed a kind of discipline on the chaos, a reminder that logic could not be drowned out by passion alone. Viewers watching from around the world could feel the polarity, Emma's energy raw and fiery, Maher's measured and steady. The dichotomy was cinematic in its clarity. Here was hero versus villain, not in the sense of morality alone, but in the way each wielded influence over the narrative. The contrast became even more apparent as the audience tuned in. Emma, the celebrity activist, represented a movement of moral certainty, eager to dictate terms of social justice yet untested against live, rigorous scrutiny. Maher, the seasoned cultural commentator, represented reasoned courage, unafraid to challenge popular opinion, grounded in principles that transcended trend or optics. Each glance, each carefully chosen phrase, framed the broader battle for public opinion, making viewers feel the stakes personally. Yet the tension was not one-sided. Emma's intellect and passion had earned her admiration and trust among millions. She had a voice that could inspire, a platform that demanded attention. The danger for her was overconfidence, the kind that blinds one to nuance and the necessity of listening before striking. For Maher, the danger was misstep, but decades of practice had trained him to read energy, anticipate attacks, and respond with unflinching precision. The stage was perfectly set, the poised yet vulnerable antagonist versus the calm, battle-tested hero. As the debate approached, every element seemed to converge, the studio lights, the expectant murmurs of the audience, the digital storm of live social reactions. The world was watching, suspended between outrage and anticipation. Emma's poised exterior and Maher's composed authority were on a collision course that would soon erupt in verbal fireworks. Every viewer felt it, every social media user sensed it, this was more than a televised debate. It was a defining moment in the culture wars, a demonstration of how principles, intellect, and courage could collide with celebrity, passion, and moral posturing. And as the cameras focused, the world collectively leaned in. Both figures prepared to engage not merely in dialogue but in a high-stakes clash that would echo far beyond the studio. The tension, the anticipation, the sense of impending revelation created a cinematic tableau of hero versus villain. The stage was set. And just as the first words were about to fly, viewers everywhere held their breath, knowing the storm was about to break, but unaware of the magnitude of the impact that was coming. The moment the first verbal volleys flew, the studio seemed to shrink around the two figures. Emma Watson leaned forward, voice rising with indignation, each word sharp, deliberate, designed to wound. Her accusations were relentless. She framed J.K. Rowling's statements as exclusionary, harmful, even cruel. Every syllable carried moral certainty, the kind that demands agreement or casts judgment. Social media reacted instantly, clips were clipped and shared in seconds, audiences dissecting every glance, every pause. The tension was electric, palpable, unavoidable. Bill Maher remained still, an unshakable calm at the storm's center. He listened. He waited. Every objection, every moral flourish Emma threw, he catalogued, weighing precision against passion. The contrast between them couldn't have been clearer, Emma's fury against Maher's unflinching composure. The audience, both in the studio and online, felt the drama like a pulse, rising with each exchange. Murmurs of admiration for Maher's restraint contrasted with the growing sense that Emma's untested zeal might be her undoing. As the debate escalated, Emma's strategy became increasingly emotional. She raised her voice, her gestures punctuated by moral fervor, signaling confidence but also revealing cracks beneath the surface. Each point she made was delivered with conviction, yet under Maher's measured scrutiny, the gaps in logic began to show. He asked questions calmly, layering context and evidence without aggression, guiding viewers to see inconsistencies without ever raising his voice. The tension in the room mounted as the imbalance became undeniable. Social media feeds erupted with live commentary. Clips of Emma's sharp delivery juxtaposed with Maher's calm responses went viral in real time. Analysts, commentators, and casual viewers debated furiously, who held the higher ground? Who commanded authority? The cultural stakes were monumental, but so too was the spectacle. Every pause, every deliberate inflection, every eyebrow raise was dissected, creating a digital echo chamber of anticipation and suspense. What happens next changes everything, a trending tweet warned, and the audience couldn't tear their eyes away. The turning point began to crystallize. Emma's rhetorical intensity, once commanding, now teetered on the edge of overexposure. Her arguments, while passionate, revealed vulnerability under the quiet pressure of Maher's calm, incisive logic. Each rebuttal he delivered dismantled a piece of her position, yet he did so with an almost imperceptible grace, never condescending, never harsh. The studio fell into a rhythm of tension and release, Emma striking, Maher deflecting, the audience leaning forward with every word. Then came the moment that shifted everything. Maher paused, a measured silence, charged with gravity. Cameras caught the subtle tilt of his head, the quiet confidence in his eyes. He spoke slowly, deliberately, unraveling Emma's arguments piece by piece. Evidence, logic, and principle intertwined seamlessly, forming a counterattack that left the studio breathless. Emma's face registered a flicker of doubt, her posture shifted subtly. The audience could feel the tide turning. The once dominant aggressor now faltered under the weight of reason. Reactions came instantly. Social media exploded, hashtags spiking, memes emerging within minutes. Commentators scrambled to capture the moment, analysts debated the significance, and viewers around the world absorbed the unfolding spectacle. Maher's composed yet devastating rebuttal had shifted the narrative completely. Emma Watson, poised and confident moments before, now faced the reality of her untested convictions, her arguments unraveling under the calm authority of a veteran debater. The scene reached its emotional peak. Tension hung like a storm cloud, every participant in the studio and every viewer online suspended in anticipation of what would follow. The clash had escalated from heated argument to transformative confrontation, a cinematic showdown where hero and villain were defined not by celebrity status but by mastery of principle, composure, and courage. And as Maher finished his measured, piercing counter, the studio fell into a hush so deep it was almost reverent, the silence itself amplifying the impact. That single, pivotal moment changed everything. Emma's attack had been neutralized, her authority challenged, the narrative transformed. And yet, the story was far from over. The fallout, the social reaction, the cultural ripple effects, the debates and conversations ignited around the globe, was about to begin. Viewers felt the suspense in their own lives, the weight of witnessing history in the making, and the cinematic drama had reached the precipice of its resolution. The debate had ended, but the reverberations were only beginning. As Bill Maher's calm, devastating counter landed, social media erupted in a storm of reaction. Clips of his measured dismantling of Emma Watson's argument spread like wildfire. Hashtags spiked, trending worldwide. Memes cropped up instantly, capturing every raised eyebrow, every subtle pause, every unflinching look of logic meeting moral fury. Commentators scrambled to frame the moment, some lauded Maher's composure, others criticized Emma's apparent overconfidence. The cultural ripple effect was immediate, profound, and unstoppable. Across platforms, viewers debated passionately. For some, Emma's attack had seemed justified at first, a righteous call for accountability. But Maher's calm authority, his ability to expose contradictions without personal attack, shifted the narrative. Audiences began to reconsider, to question assumptions, to weigh evidence over emotion. The storm of outrage that had defined the first half of the debate now collided with reason, leaving viewers suspended between admiration and disbelief. The moment had transcended television. It had entered public consciousness as a defining instance of intellectual rigor confronting performative moral certainty. Emma, meanwhile, sat in quiet reflection. The fervor of her arguments had given way to subtle realization. She had underestimated the depth and precision of her opponent. Her passion remained, but now tempered with a newfound awareness of the stakes of live debate and the limits of performative virtue. The room fell silent at key moments, as if the audience itself recognized the shift. The once dominant aggressor was now tempered by humility, and the seasoned debater's principles had prevailed. Bill Maher's victory was not one of arrogance or spectacle. It was a triumph of dignity, intellect, and reason. The narrative he crafted was not only about exposing flaws, it was about demonstrating the power of calm authority, the importance of integrity, and the value of speaking truthfully in the face of popular but untested moral fervor. In that studio, in front of millions, he reframed the clash from a fight between celebrities to a lesson in ethics, courage, and the weight of responsibility that comes with influence. The aftermath rippled beyond the cameras. Analysts discussed the broader cultural implications, the role of social media in amplifying both emotion and logic, the responsibilities of public figures in shaping discourse, and the ways in which audience perception could pivot dramatically within moments. Maher's approach became a reference point, a model of how to challenge assertions respectfully but decisively. Emma's missteps served as a cautionary tale, illustrating the dangers of assuming moral authority without rigorous grounding in evidence or self-reflection. Yet beyond analysis and debate, the true resonance of the moment was emotional. Viewers who had felt silenced or dismissed found validation. Those who valued courage, reason, and integrity over performative outrage felt uplifted, inspired, and empowered. Maher's calm authority became a proxy for the audience itself, a reflection of what it means to confront challenges with clarity and courage. The story transcended the personal clash and became a cultural lesson in the enduring value of dignity over anger, reason over impulse, and principle over spectacle. Finally, the narrative closed with a moral reflection. The clash between Maher and Watson was more than a televised spectacle, it was a demonstration that ideas, truth, and integrity endure even amid emotional onslaughts. Maher reframed the conflict as universal, standing by one's principles, speaking honestly, and upholding dignity is a responsibility we all share. For viewers, the lesson was clear: courage is not loud or performative, it is measured, deliberate, and persistent. The cinematic tension resolved not through theatrics, but through clarity, conviction, and unwavering composure. The outro delivered one final call to action. The video tied back to the title, emphasizing Maher's triumph in defending reason against untested zeal. Viewers were encouraged to engage, to share, to comment, and to subscribe, not merely for entertainment, but to participate in a broader movement valuing truth, courage, and integrity. The final words lingered. The debate may have ended, but the conversation continues, and every voice matters. Audiences were left feeling empowered, validated, and inspired, aware that the storm of discourse is ongoing, but that principled courage always leaves its mark.